But I first want to get into a topic that affects so many people. Millions of Americans are born genetically predisposed to extremely high levels of a certain type of cholesterol that can cause deadly heart attacks and strokes by middle age, and they're unaware. And a lot of doctors aren't even testing it. And this is called LP little a. So I want to get into cholesterol in general and what the difference is with this little cholesterol that no one really talks about, and what your experience has been, to kind of shed light on this unknown topic.
So there's a lot to unpack with LP little a. So what I think that is the best approach here would just to kind of give a little understanding of what it is and the dangers of everything present with it. And then I'm going to explain how I really fell into it and why it became such a passionate study of mine and something that personally happened to me. And I'll give my experience. And then I will also discuss proper and improper treatments and assessments of LP little a and misrepresentations that are out there that you will get from doctors that are not well versed on it. So, in short, it's a type of cholesterol, and it's very similar to low density lipoprotein, or your LDL, which is our bad cholesterol, as we know. Now, LP little a is a combination of LDL cholesterol and this protein that's called apolipoprotein A. Now, basically, what it's thought to do is contribute to the formation of plaque in your arteries, atherosclerosis, and that can narrow your arteries and it can increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. Now, LP little a is like an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So when you have an elevated LP little a, you're at a much higher risk for heart attack, possibly stroke. And a lot of times what you'll see is people that have a very, very, very high LP little a have no clue. They don't know what it is. They've never heard of it. They've never been tested for it. It's something that never gets brought up when you go to a doctor. And in fact, I would argue that the two most important markers that you can check in your blood work are LP little a and ApoB. And we can get into ApoB as well in terms of what it is and how they compare. Now, the thing about LP little a, so when we talk about cholesterol and you go in and let's say you have high cholesterol, the first things that they're going to tell you to do is fix your diet, correct your lifestyle, and exercise more. This is very common knowledge for generally most people. The thing with LP little a is that really makes it terrible. That doesn't play any role. Your diet plays no role. Your exercise plays no role. So you can go modify, make all of these changes, and it has no effect. Secondly, as you kind of mentioned, this is like something that you're born with. It's hereditary. You can't control this. It's not something that you did wrong. You know what you have? Yes, some people are more predisposed to having high cholesterol in their genes or their DNA. The problem with this is that you cannot really exacerbate it or do something. You know, with LDL, you could have a bad diet. You caused it. You could not exercise enough. You caused it. This is out of your control. Secondly, because it's not talked about or discussed, you'll see a lot of people that will die young or die randomly, and you'll like, how did this happen? Like this athlete or this person. And then you kind of make an assumption, oh, they were doing this or that. When in fact, this is what I would term the most prevalent of the silent killers because you just don't know. And then one day there's an episode. And the problem is let's say, for instance, you have plaque buildup in your widowmaker, which is in your left. That is called the widowmaker for a reason, because if somebody's not around you and something happens there and you don't have somebody there, you're done. You're not going to survive because it's in the worst possible spot. So here goes the question. What do we do then? Because here's the myth that you will hear. You will go to the doctor and they will tell you, one, you only test this once. Okay. One time test and you get a number and it's kind of like, well, that's it.
Mhm.
Not it for one. Okay. You do need to have this tested. And I would urge that you have this tested very young, like before you're a teenager, so that you have some sort of an idea, because you'll see some elevation as very young, and then you can at least go, okay, I'm predisposed to this. What do I have to do? What steps are there that we can do this? The problem is the steps are minimal right now, which I'll get into. Excuse me. So we do that early check. Now, let's say you're me, like 40 years old, you don't know about this, nothing about this, and then you go get it checked and you're elevated. Well, what are they going to tell you to do? The immediate reaction to anything cholesterol related is always statin, statin, statin. Okay. I can go off on a long tangent about statins, but let's forget that for now, and let's just relate this to your LP little a score. Okay. Statins will increase your LP little a.
Mm.
Okay. They will do nothing to help your LP little a. And the problem is right now there's actually nothing that is there that's directed just for LP little a treatment. Now, PCSK9 inhibitors have shown and proven, and I will discuss on my own self, that they can reduce LP little a. They're generally, we're talking like Repatha, Vasipa, things like that, that could, they're on paper, they're shown to 25 to 35% if you're very blessed to reduce LP little a. But therein lies the problem. They tell you test this once and never test it again, because you're kind of, but then that there's your double-edged sword. But these are already showing to lower it. And there's right now phase 3. I think it's Eli Lilly has one in phase 2 and one in phase 3 that they're showing like an 80 to 90% reduction in LP little a. Because right now, if you're so severe, the only thing that you could possibly do is it's a blood apheresis, where they go in and you go in like weekly, and they don't really even do this. It's the most extreme case. They extract blood and pull it out to lower your score, but you have to keep doing it like every week. So just imagine going in, sitting for like an hour, having to drive to a clinic that's hours away because it's only offered in certain areas, and having this blood just drained out of you, and then having to go do it over and over. So here's the mythical side, and here's my story on LP little a. So I am an avid trainer, an avid dietitian, nutritionist. I live a very strict life, no drugs, no alcohol, eat same thing, same time, like overwork myself, even though I know I shouldn't. So I'm technically an overtrainer. But you can't, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but you can't do anything more precise than I do it. So one would expect at 43 years old, and the way that I train and that I eat, you would not have any sort of plaque or heart problem at all. This is by God's grace that this even happened to me. I make videos on YouTube, and there was a doctor that called out one of my videos, right? And I called him, because we're talking, I'm a large influencer. Even though he's a doctor, large influencer. I got a hold of him and called him. I said, hey man, I said, first of all, I take no offense. We're doing this. And I said, I think you had it wrong. Well, long story short, we got to talk, and he said, I want to hire you within an hour. So after this conversation, I start to work for him, and he says, look, he goes, I know you're in this condition. We know this, da, da, da. You've used some things, maybe steroid related, you shouldn't have used, but very minimally. And you don't do any drugs or anything. But he said, all of my employees go get a calcium score so I can take care of them if there's something wrong. And I was like, I told my wife, I said, you know what? I'm just going to go do what I'm told. I listen to people that know more than me. 10 years ago, I would have been like, dude, this dude's crazy. Just get out of my face, but I was a jerk, So I went and did it. And for anybody, just in short, a calcium score will give you it's basically an assessment on if you have plaque in your arteries. You do a scan. It's not precise, so it doesn't give you a precise percentage. It gives you an estimate based upon their findings, what they see on how much plaque buildup you may have in your arteries, and it'll show you the location. And you're supposed to be 0 or below 10, really 0 essentially. And the expectation was mine would be 0. So I got it. I didn't even think twice about it for my score. I really wasn't worried about it. Well, my score came back 121. And yeah, so I didn't understand right when I saw it. I knew that was like, oh, that doesn't sound great. I read the paper and I have an understanding from all of my years and work with doctors, but I haven't done extensive at this time. This was 2 years ago. I hadn't done extensive like cardiology studies, and it hadn't made it a tip top priority to me at the time when I should have. Essentially, with the industry I'm in, training professional athletes, steroid users, I should have more of an understanding on cholesterol. And I was more focused on liver, kidneys, organs, basic bloods. And so from there, I panicked, obviously, once I studied, and I took it upon myself to, okay, I need extensive testing here. I don't just need HDL, LDL, triglycerides. Those are your basic standard tests, okay? They're fine. We need to see them, but they don't tell you anything. They
Right.
don't open up the broader picture or spectrum. These are your most basic of basics. And what kills me, Sarah, is that doctors, one, don't put everybody on at least once a comprehensive cholesterol panel, metabolic panel, whatever you want to call it. And two, they're not very versed on it. You
Right.
know, well, I'm telling you, these are the silent killer markers that are really going to tell you. And I'm going to tell you why they're not versed on it in a minute. But I took it upon myself. So I went and got my LP little a, my ApoB, all of that. Well, guess what? My LP little a score was 330.
Mm.
Now,
And where is it supposed to be?
that's what generally speaking, under 75 is puts you in like a normal range. But in all honesty, it should be 25 or below, ideally, right? Well, I found out through a lot of studies, and then thankfully, see, I'm blessed because I know the right people to talk to. Not everybody does. So I was able to talk to two people. One, I was hooked up with one of the top cardiologists in the entire United States who put me right in ahead of the line, that I'm so blessed for. That's Dr. Brett Nolan. Two, another one of my close friends that I didn't really understand or know was a close friend till I talked to him, and he was a big fan of mine, and I met him through the doctor, and I ended up being close friends now. He is one of the head workers that designs Vasipa, which is a PCSK9 inhibitor. So he educated me on the difference between statins and PCSK9s. So what I did was learn and understand, one, LP little a can come down. Two, what I explained, it's hereditary. So three, I then got in the car with my mom and my wife, drove 4 hours to the Mayo Clinic, because I thought, I'm going to go up there, I'm going to get everything prescribed, and they're going to know, everything, and they're going to help me. So I get up there and I go in there, and I don't want to go in there and insult people because I'm not an MD. So I went in there and broke down what I know, everything I know, without being, I understand what it's like to have somebody try. I just basically kind of inquisitively say, well, I feel like this is what I want. I'm not comfortable with this. And they told me that it would be bad practice to put me on a PCSK9 inhibitor. There was not enough information on LP little a, and that all I needed to do was take a statin, and, oh, you have nothing to worry about. You'd be just fine. You're young. And I got into a big, I'm a mama's boy, and I'm like my daughter and my wife and my mom, I'm so delicate with women. And this was one of those times where I just lost it on them in the car, because they're like, you just listen to them and you don't. And I'm like, you guys, no. And so I just handled it myself from there on out. So what I did, never took the statin. I got on Vasipa first, and then I got on Repatha. Repatha is a twice a month injection. Vasipa is like the most natural, purest form of fish oil. It's not like this drug, but it's like 20 times strong. It's amazing. So then I talked to some doctors, and they highly recommended niacin. Now you're going to have some doctors that are firmly against that and some that are. Now, I will argue for some it's because there's no money in it from the drug companies. You can go pay $14 a month for the amount you need. So that's a different story. But doctors now are programmed, and this is what I've learned, unfortunately. If they start writing you scripts for PCSK9 inhibitors, their insurance company is going to call over and say, guess what? You keep writing those, we're going to drop you out of our network.
Okay, that was what I was waiting for. Where's the money? Follow the money. Okay, go ahead.
They're taught in school, and I don't have the stats in front of me because I didn't know how deep we were going to go on this. I had a whole thing written up on this on how the percentages on what they're taught in school. It's like I think it was 70 to 80% of all of it's funded by the pharmaceutical companies when they go to school, when they go to get their education. It was my chiropractor was explaining this to me and breaking this down. And they only have X amount of training in one, and the rest is all in drugs. And they're all programmed and told that statins are like the end all cure all. They're going to save your life. And it's so wrong, because what a statin will do for benefit wise, there's like 30 other things that'll do wrong to you.
Right.
And it doesn't, if you break down the studies and get through the fluff and the BS that they put there, there's like a 0.5% reduction in events, actual cardio events. So it's disgusting and it's despicable. Anyway, remember how I told you that number can't come down, you should never test it again. So I go on my therapies that I did with the PCSK9 inhibitors. I implemented niacin for quite a while. I stopped at this point. My number went from 330 to 185 in 6 months.
Wow.
Then it went to 130. And now I went from the red to the yellow and was down to 93 on my last test.
Wow.
Now, I've done some other things that I could discuss that I've taken, like with Mitopure, which is mitochondrial repair and increasing mitophagy, which can in turn help this. And I'm also doing some stem cell releasers that are also very possibly helping in this regard, because I'm literally almost to the point where I'm out of the yellow and into the green.
Amazing.
And you don't want to test your calcium score or your CT angios too often. So I've been giving this time, and I've been doing other things that I know help to reduce plaque, because they'll also tell you can't reduce plaque in your arteries. And every strong naturopathic doctor that I respect tells you otherwise. And I've seen people reduce it and eliminate plaque. So I don't want to hear that either. Now, there's things like I do pomegranate juice and these things that have shown in study to reduce plaque. Okay. Now, I just got an offer to do this Ezra scan in New York here. They're going to pay for me and fly me out, and that's going to give me a big breakdown of my whole body. It checks for cancer, everything, but it'll also give me another assessment on my heart. I had a CT angio done, and there was like a 30-some% blockage, but thank God I found it early enough to where, because it would have 5 more years would have gone by and I didn't do any of this. That blockage could have been 70. That's stint time, you know? And I would have been doing cardio an hour and a half a day like I do, and training every day and never know, you know? So now I've changed certain things and done certain things. But if you don't have this education and the connections like that I was blessed with, or people like myself that are willing to go discuss this and then get doctors on that'll talk about it, you'll just never know. And you'll be taking a statin and just slowly dying.
Yeah.
I mean, really, because they're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul, but they're paying 20 Pauls. You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous. So
with, gosh, so much. I mean, it's triggering so much in my brain. I feel so blessed that I've got amazing practitioners. I think are the most brilliant people in the world at my fingertips. So anytime I have a health issue, I always have like 5 people to go to, and then sift through their knowledge into me and what sits with me and feels right. And this is just an overall lesson for everybody to not stop when you get the answer you're not looking for, that doesn't sound right, that you are your best doctor and you need to be vigilant in this world of health, because unfortunately the medical system does not educate our doctors the way they should, and you do have to follow the money. And there are things that they may not test for because there's no money in it, right? I mean, you look at the typical blood test. I talk a lot about thyroid issues, and even the most functional doctors, I'll say, someone will come to me and say, I have hypothyroidism. Or no, better yet, they'll say, no, I've gained weight, I feel fatigued, I have brain fog, all the symptoms of hypothyroidism, but my doctor says I'm normal. Well, let me see your labs. All they test are the TSH and the T4. They're not giving that full panel.